Hi, it's me, Egbert, E-G-G-B-U-R-T, the owner of this radio station. I invite everyone to listen, no matter if you're young, old, black, white, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, heck, I even want real estate agents listening to my station. Yes, even Rick and Tracy. You're all welcome. Now, it's back to my Goodwill ambassadors, Brad and John.
That is John Combest, C-O-M-B-E-S-T. You can check out his website at johncombest.com. This show is done live. If you're listening to this on a podcast or on a YouTube channel and you're thinking, oh, this is just a podcast. No, we do the show live, and then we just chop it up and put it on those various sources. It is live Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. And we do it every day except for when John and I can't do the show, then we don't do it. But for the most part,
that happened once this week, Brad, yes. And probably, I guess counting the summer, it happened maybe 5 times, and one of those was because I was with my kids on their first day of school. Thanks for pointing that out, Brad.
And one of them was, or two of them was, when I was in the padded cell room when they wouldn't let me out. That's what 2 of them were. Okay. Bunch of stuff to talk about our last segment of today and last segment of the segment of this week. Did you by any chance watch any of the convention last night?
I did not. I saw a 1-minute speech from the cuck, the kind of limp-wristed guy from Illinois that's a Republican but hates Donald Trump, whatever that guy's name is. But I didn't watch anything. I didn't watch Kamala or any of the other stuff. I
heard that. I thought that was weird. Was that Kensinger? What's his name? Kissinger?
Yeah, that's his name. You're right.
Kensinger or something like that. And he I'm a Republican, but I meant the Democrat. And here he's dissing all the Republicans. Okay. This is my observation. I didn't listen to the entire Kamala address or Kamala. It's interesting because even the Democrats are calling her different things. Bill Clinton called her something different the other night. And once again, the interesting thing was now it's to the point where if you don't call her Kamala, if you call her Kamala or something like that, you're a racist. Okay, you know what? You can call me Brad. You can call me Brode. You can call me Breed. I don't care. It doesn't really bother me. Okay, but the point I was listening last night was, it was all about her mom, and matter of fact, one of the people that introduced her second to last was her sister, and they gave a long dissertation about her mother. And what's interesting about it is, I didn't hear anything. I've never heard anything about her father until she actually spoke. Do you know the story on this? Do you know the deal on this?
No, I don't. I don't know anything about her dad. And is her dad Indian, or is that the Jamaican?
Her mother is Indian. Her father is Jamaican. Okay.
Okay.
And the interesting thing was, it finally came out. I have never heard this story before. She told the story that, and her mom was, I think they were both professors. They were both, if I'm not mistaken, they're both PhDs. And she talked about that they moved around the country, that they taught at various universities, and they ended up back in the San Francisco area. And her father left her mother and the kids and her sister. I can't remember her. I think her sister's name is Maya. Her father just, I guess, went out for smokes and never came back. That's the impression I got from what she said. And talked about how her mother, was a single mother and raised them in East Bay and blah 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 blah. I never heard that story before. Now, the interesting part of it is that if I'm not mistaken, once again, I know for a fact because she gave the history of her mother. Her mother came from India when she was 19. She came to the United States by herself to go to school, and then when she graduated, and you know what the interesting thing was? She said her mother's goal was, I have to look this up and find out more about her mother. It sounds very fascinating to me. But her goal in life was to cure breast cancer. Now, I guess she was some kind of a researcher or something like that. Does that make sense?
I didn't know that.
Well, that's what she said. I mean, she said her mother's goal was to cure breast cancer, and I know they were both PhDs, and I think at one point in time, I think they both taught at Stanford, if I'm not mistaken. So, and not Sanford Brown, as John would say.
Yeah, no, but real quick, she didn't know that the way you cure breast cancer is by special jerseys in Major League Baseball and the NFL, right? If they wear pink or use a pink bat, that makes a big difference in the fight against breast cancer, doesn't it, Brad?
By the way, John, I am so tired of these alternate uniforms in Major League Baseball. I mean, some of them look like cheap softball league uniforms. You know what I mean?
I do, and I'm on Amazon now. I just canceled the order for your PGH Pittsburgh jersey, Brad. So I guess you're pretty ungrateful about that, but I'm glad that I stopped it before it got
to the point where it's like, okay, Why don't you just come out and say, hey, we're Major League Baseball and we make a potload of money, but we don't have enough money, so we're going to come out with 14 million different jerseys, and all you suckers out there are going to run down to the store and pay exorbitant amounts of money for the Lou uniform and the St. Louis uniform.
Hold on, Brad. The other day, I turned the news on, which is rare, and I saw the Cardinals had a hat with block letters that said STL. Now, Brad, that looks like if you go up, if you take 270 to Bell Fountain, you go north, you go directly across from Bell Park Plaza. There's a store called Hood Goods, which, of course, was a minority-owned business, so it was out of business in 9 months. But for a good 9 months, Hood Goods sold, like, cheap screen-printed stuff that looks like the kind of hat you could have got at Hood Goods, just block letter STL. And imagine going into the New Era store at Busch Stadium and dropping $45 for a hat that looks like you got it from the Jennings swap meet.
That's John Combat. he's never biased whatsoever. Okay, I have pulled up the page for the Wikipedia page for Kamala Harris's mother. Her name is Shyamala, Shyamala Gopalan, Gopalan. She was born December 7th, 1938. She passed away February 11th, 2009. She was a biomedical scientist at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, whose work in isolating and characterizing the progesterone receptor gene has stimulated advances in the breast biology and oncology. She's the mother of Vice President of the United States Kamala Harris, and Maya Harris, a lawyer and political commentator. So once again, my hat's off to this woman because of the fact she had a goal, and that's what she did. She tried to.
And Brad, you would point out that, especially, sorry to interrupt, but a woman in that era, it was rare for them to be a doctor. And either as an Indian in that era, you were going to be a doctor or you were going to learn information technology.
Well, my mom, I've told this story before.
Tell it again, Brad.
My mom was women's lib before women's lib was women's lib, okay? I grew up in this household with now, the bizarre part of this is my dad was a World War II hero, okay? I don't use that word, and just say, I'm not going to be like Tim Walz. Well, I was a man at war. My dad was in war. My dad had we didn't realize this till after he passed away. We're getting ready for his funeral, and we found out he had not one, not two, but 3 Bronze Stars with Combat Valor Vs, which, if you know anything about that, that's like very impressive kind of stuff, okay? And he was a very quiet man. My mom was the opposite. My mom was this in-your-face kind of person who lamented the fact, and she was in education. She was special ed. She went to Washington University, your alma mater. Both my mom and dad did. She got a degree. She was a speech pathologist. And the bizarre part of this is, John and I were talking about this about a month or so ago when the controversy came up that Jay Ashcroft was not a registered engineer.
A real engineer.
Right, not a real engineer. He wasn't on the state registry or whatever. What was that? Was that state registry?
Yeah,
whatever
the
it was?
Office of Professional Registry.
Right. So John did a deep dive, and John found my mom and dad on there. Remember we talked about this? My dad was.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't look up your parents, Brad.
Well, you found it. You're the one that told me that. Or who told me that? Was it somebody else?
No, you told us that you went on the website and you...
Oh, no. I know it was. It was the smartest woman in the world. The smartest woman in the world went on the registration site and found that my mom and dad were both on the list that Jay Ashcroft was not. And my mom was on there as a registered speech pathologist. My dad was on there twice as a civil engineer and a registered land surveyor. Okay, so my mom was upset because of the fact in education she could never be anything higher than a department chairperson, because back in the day there were no women principals or vice principals or assistant principals or superintendents or administrators. It was all a man's world, okay? And my mom, to this day, I still think about this. It's so weird. If we went out somewhere, let's say we had a bad meal at a restaurant or something like that, or we went somewhere and, when she's getting tires in her car and they put the wrong tires on or something like that, my mom would look at me and she would say, you know what the problem here is? And I always knew the answer, but I said, no, what, Mom? And she'd say, some dumb man is in charge. That was her.
And and now, Brad, yesterday we talked about how Jamie Corley represents your mom and your subconscious, hearing your mom out at a place unnecessarily attributing mistakes and errors to men, what kind of effect do you think that had on you?
It made me see the light, John. It made me see that men are the substandard, gender, that men are the stupid
There
ones.
you go. That is good old-fashioned blue pill game, Brad. I like it.
The men are the weak ones. Men are the ones who don't know their butt from a hole in the ground. That's men. The women.
So see, the great thing about our show, Brad, is that there are a lot of young men that listen to us. I looked at our YouTube demographics the other day, Brad. Do you know exactly the percentage, according to YouTube in the last month, of male versus females who listen to our show via YouTube?
Go ahead, give it to me.
Almost exactly 85% male and 15% female. So when men listen to this, Brad, you might be in a space where you're not going to change your mentality and you're not going to change the way you approach, the way you look at yourself. But young men listen to this, and young men hear what I'm saying. They understand what I talk about, and they understand that when we say, okay, men are substandard, men are dumb, men are idiots. Anything a man can do, a woman can do better. And then it's like Jamie Corley quoted the old tired thing of words in heels. Like when we denigrate men and men accept that, then that's a template for how they approach women their whole life. And I think, Brad, you do a great job of explaining how your mom had an influence in bad-mouthing men and putting men down and denigrating men when they don't deserve it, and the effect that can have on men as they grow up. And you do a great job explaining that, Brad.
Thanks, John. I think I'll take that as a compliment, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, it is.
Let me call Mark McCluskey back and see if he can decipher what you just said. Maybe he can give us a different spin on that.
He might be on the 9th floor, and Patty said, our house is big, so it takes a while to get places.
I wonder if she heard me say, is that his wife or is that his girlfriend?
Yeah, that was terrific, Brad.
Okay. So John, what you're saying is my outlook on life has been tainted by my mother, and then
No, Brad, and I think you would make the argument, this is an important conversation to have. I think you would make the argument it hasn't been tainted, and your mom would certainly say, and there's a number of women out there who would say, that you were properly educated on the fact that men are substandard, that men don't think very well, that men are a lesser species. And then I think there's strong young men out there who can see this and understand what I'm saying and understand how harmful that approach is when we say that one sex is better than another. And also, though, Brad, in your defense, there's a lot of men out there who think that whole blue pill game of, okay, I'm going to tell women what they want to hear. Anything a man can do, a woman can do better. You like that, right? You approve of me. I'm not like those other guys. I'm different. I understand what you're saying. And she's going to cry on your shoulder and make you feel like a good friend. And then later on that night, she's going to text John and come over. And she's going to talk to a guy that puts her in her place. And then tomorrow she can cry about it with Brad. And it's a beautiful circle of life, Brad.
See,
men that want to be emotional tampons for women definitely have a role in life, Brad. And I think you do a good job of explaining how that kind of psyche comes to be.
I've said in the past before that this show is therapy. John, thank you so much because I don't have to pay a therapist. You
are welcome, Brad.
And
let's hold on. I'm going to interrupt. We all agree, and all sarcasm aside, your mom raised a wonderful man who has done a ton of things for other people. Brad, you are selfless, and you have done so much for so many other people. And there's no denying that the fact that your mom was a strong woman had a really positive impact on you.
But here's the interesting thing. My dad was a quiet man until the stuff hit the fan. Then you didn't want to mess with him. You didn't want to mess with him. And what's interesting to me about that is I look back on that and I think to myself, he, to me, is sort of the definition of masculinity. He wasn't the guy walking around with the, with the tank top, with the bulging muscles. Hey, bro, get out of my way. He was the guy who was sort of quiet, did his job, went off to war, was in the Army for 40 years. My brother and I still can't believe the fact that he went in when he was 22, retired when he was 62 as a captain. But yet, when the stuff hit the fan, he was the guy you wanted there because
he was there. Yeah,
you knew he was like, and I don't. This is sort of weird, but he was sort of like, what is it, Bruce Banner in the Incredible Hulk? You know that.
He could turn in a minute if he needed to.
Right, Bruce Banner was the quiet guy, sort of meek and mild, and then all of a sudden, what happened? The shirt busted off, and there he was, and you didn't want to mess with him, And what's
go ahead, Brad.
What's interesting about that is that God, when I hear this stuff about toxic masculinity, once again, when the stuff hits the fan, and you're someplace when the stuff hits the fan, you don't want a bunch of wimpy guys around. You want guys who are going to step forward and go, no, we're not putting up with this. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, real quick, the best part about your dad that you've told us before, and you mentioned it today, to me, the most impressive thing is the fact that he had these accolades. He had Purple Hearts. He had all these awards. And when he passed away, you guys found out about it later. Brad, most men today, if they won a Purple Heart, they would have an Instagram post. They would do an Instagram reel. They would post to LinkedIn that said, so humbled to be here today with the other brave soldiers. I'm just so humbled to have received this award. What does it say about your dad that your dad could receive all these accolades, have all this knowledge, and he didn't go around reminding everybody how smart and how tough he was? That is what a man does, Brad.
John, it was a different generation, and it was not
absolutely
not Purple Hearts. It was Bronze Stars. Okay,
Bronze Stars.
Yeah, and once again, I mean, my dad saw combat. My dad, I still remember the story of my dad telling me that after the victory in Europe, he was on a troop ship headed for Japan, and they were going to invade Japan, and the only reason the troop ship turned around was they bombed Japan with the A bombs, with Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and then finally the Japanese surrendered. Troop ship turned around, and he ended up back in Seattle. Crazy story.
And most people didn't know that he was going to Japan, but then they picked up the Globe Democrat, and Jerry Berger had a citum that said that your dad was on a boat to Japan.
Leroy Zygmunt Hildebrand, seen on a troop ship headed across the Pacific. Yes, all right. That was Jerry Berger. Say goodbye, John.
See you guys on Monday.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?